Imagine for a moment a psychological red flag so insidious, so subtle, it flies under the radar of even the most perceptive among us. This isn't about the overtly toxic, the loud and aggressive. No, this is about the charming, the seemingly well-intentioned, the person you might even trust implicitly. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in psychology, discovered that 73% of his most dangerous patients exhibited this exact warning sign before they spiraled into destructive patterns. And when you spot it, Jung's advice was stark. Immediate withdrawal is your only defense. Today, we're diving deep into this silent psychological killer, precisely because its subtlety makes it so lethal. It's not just a theory. It's a critical warning system, and it could save your sanity, even your life. The specific sign Jung identified surfaces when someone begins to project their shadow onto others, not with doubt, but with absolute, unwavering conviction. Now, most people hear shadow projection and think it's just some abstract psychological concept. But in 1913, Jung encountered a patient who shattered that notion forever. This man was charismatic, articulate, even expressed genuine concern for others. Yet, Jung observed a pattern that sent a chill down his spine. Every person this patient labeled as evil or manipulative shared identical characteristics. Characteristics Jung recognized as the patient's own denied traits. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. It was a systematic, unconscious dumping of his personal darkness onto everyone around him. Within 6 short months, this patient had annihilated 3 relationships, managed to get 2 colleagues fired, and drove his own brother to a complete nervous breakdown. All the while, he maintained an air of complete innocence, genuinely believing himself to be the perpetual victim. Jung realized he wasn't witnessing a mere clash of personalities, but perhaps the most dangerous psychological mechanism in human interaction. Unconscious shadow projection fueled by absolute conviction. But here's the kicker, the truly terrifying part. Modern neuroscience has actually revealed why this is so destructive. Dr. Robert Sapolsky's research at Stanford has shown that when someone projects their shadow with such absolute certainty, their brain doesn't just process information. It literally rewrites reality to affirm their distorted perceptions. During intense projection episodes, the same neural networks light up as during full-blown delusional states. This means the person isn't consciously lying. Their brain has genuinely altered their perception of reality. This is why shadow projectors are so incredibly convincing. They genuinely believe their own warped narratives because their neural filtering system has been hijacked by their unconscious content. But the real danger comes. This unshakable conviction creates what psychologists call reality distortion fields. They don't just misinterpret you. They actively convince others to see you through their own warped lens. Jung meticulously documented countless cases where shadow projectors demolished reputations, shattered relationships, and tore apart entire social networks simply by spreading their unconscious projections with chilling certainty. Think about it. Remember the last time someone accused you of motivations you never had, emotions you never felt, or intentions you never possessed. If they did it with complete certainty, completely immune to any evidence you provided, you were likely experiencing shadow projection in real time. What makes shadow projection so utterly insidious is its self-reinforcing nature. The stronger the projection, the more convinced the projector becomes. It's a psychological feedback loop that can ensnare entire families, workplaces, and even broader communities. Ancient wisdom traditions recognized this phenomenon long before Jung articulated it scientifically. Buddhism speaks of the darkened mirror that reflects one's own impurities as foreign objects. Christianity warns about seeing the speck in another's eye while missing the beam in your own. But Jung went deeper. He realized that shadow projectors don't just misperceive reality. They actively create alternate realities that feel completely authentic to them and, disturbingly, increasingly real to others. The critical warning sign appears when you notice a profound disconnect between how someone describes you and your actual internal experience. They attribute thoughts, feelings, and motivations to you that simply do not exist within your consciousness. And they do it with such unwavering certainty that you might actually start questioning your own reality. This is psychological gaslighting at its most sophisticated level, not conscious manipulation, but an unconscious distortion of reality so powerful it can drive targets to genuine psychological breakdown. But the projection itself isn't the ultimate danger. The true menace lies in how shadow projectors unconsciously recruit others into their distorted reality. Jung termed this collective possession, when entire groups begin to perceive the world through one person's warped projections. Dr. Leon Festinger's research on cognitive dissonance illuminates how this happens. When someone presents their projections with absolute conviction, others experience an intense psychological pressure to align their perceptions with the projector's certainty, rather than trusting their own contradictory observations. This is precisely how families turn against scapegoated members, how workplaces mob innocent employees, and how communities destroy individuals based on projected accusations that have no basis in objective reality. The projector effectively becomes the eye of a psychological storm, unconsciously orchestrating others into attacking the very qualities they refuse to accept in themselves. Jung observed this devastating pattern repeatedly in his most dangerous patients. They didn't just project their shadows, they crafted entire social systems organized around these projections. The person targeted by the projection becomes isolated, gaslit, and eventually broken by a collective delusion they never even participated in creating. Jung identified 5 unmistakable warning signs that unequivocally reveal dangerous shadow projection. First, an absolute certainty about others' motivations. They don't say, "I think you might be." They say you are, with complete conviction about your internal states, motivations, and character. Second, an immunity to contradictory evidence. No amount of explanation, clarification, or solid evidence can shake their perceptions. In fact, they interpret your attempts to correct them as further proof of their initial accuracy. Third, you observe emotional intensity disproportionate to the evidence. They have strong, often explosive, emotional reactions to perceived slights or behaviors that others find minor or even non-existent. Their raw emotional intensity reveals the projected content, not your actual behavior. Fourth, consistent victim narratives. They consistently find themselves in conflicts where they are the innocent victim of others' malice, manipulation, or cruelty. The cast of characters around them changes, but they are always the wronged party. And finally, fifth, recruitment behavior. They subtly or overtly try to get others to see you the way they do, often through seemingly concerned conversations about your character or behavior. When you see these 5 signs together, let me be clear, you are not dealing with a simple misunderstanding or a personality conflict. You are facing unconscious shadow projection that will escalate until it destroys something vital: your reputation, your relationships, or your sanity. Shadow projection follows a predictable escalation pattern that Jung meticulously mapped over decades of clinical observation. Stage 1. Initial projection. Subtle accusations or attributions that simply don't match your reality. You usually dismiss them as mere misunderstandings. Stage 2. Conviction crystallization. The projections become more frequent and certain. The projector shows absolutely no doubt about their perceptions, despite all your efforts to correct them. Stage 3. Reality distortion. The projector begins interpreting everything you do through their projection filter. Neutral actions suddenly become damning evidence of malicious intent. Stage 4. Social recruitment. They begin sharing their concerns about you with others, always from a place of apparent care or worry, framing themselves as the vigilant observer. Stage 5. Collective possession. Others actually begin seeing you through the projector's twisted lens. You find yourself defending against accusations that seem to materialize out of thin air. Stage 6. Systematic exclusion. The group organizes around the shared projection, systematically excluding or attacking you for qualities that exist primarily in the projector's unconscious. Understanding this pattern can literally save you years of psychological damage. The key: recognizing stage 2 and strategically extracting yourself before the projection gains collective momentum. But shadow projection isn't the only dangerous sign Jung identified. He discovered an even more insidious psychological state: ego inflation. While shadow projectors are unconsciously dangerous, inflated individuals are consciously convinced of their own righteousness while remaining completely blind to their own shadow. The inflated person doesn't just project their shadow. They identify with archetypal energies that far exceed their personal capacity for integration. They become possessed by the savior, the wise one, the truth-bearer, or the righteous judge. Unlike obvious narcissists who are usually easy to spot, inflated individuals often appear spiritually evolved, morally superior, or intellectually enlightened. This apparent elevation makes them infinitely more dangerous because people willingly submit to their perceived authority and wisdom. The warning signs of dangerous inflation include: first, never doubting their own motivations. While authentic spiritual teachers express profound humility before mystery, inflated individuals exhibit absolute certainty about their perceptions and judgment. Second, they interpret any disagreement as evil. They don't process questioning as useful information, but as resistance to truth, goodness, or even divine will itself. And third, they combine extraordinary charisma with rigid thinking. Their conviction creates a magnetic attraction, pulling people in, while their inflated state eliminates any psychological flexibility whatsoever. Jung warned that inflated individuals eventually collapse under the immense psychic tension of identifying their small ego with vast transpersonal contents. But before they collapse, they often inflict devastating damage on others through their absolute conviction in their own infallible righteousness. The third dangerous sign Jung identified is complete identification with the social persona, the mask we wear in public, becoming the only identity the person recognizes. This creates what Jung called the perfect person problem. Someone so meticulously adapted to social expectations that they've severed all connection to their authentic self, and crucially, their shadow. The danger isn't obvious, because persona-identified individuals are often models of social appropriateness. They always know what to say, how to act, what expressions to wear. But this perfection conceals a terrifying emptiness. When someone has invested all of their psychic energy in maintaining a flawless external image, their rejected shadow aspects don't just disappear. They accumulate in the unconscious like immense psychological pressure in a sealed container, waiting to explode. The warning signs include uncanny social perfection. They never seem to have bad days, inappropriate reactions, or any human inconsistencies. An artificial quality to their interactions. Despite technical correctness, something feels hollow or performed in their presence. And extreme reactions to perceived image threats. Any challenge to their perfect persona triggers disproportionate, often explosive, defensive responses. Jung documented how persona-identified individuals frequently experience sudden, catastrophic shadow eruptions, explosive episodes where all their repressed content emerges in utterly destructive ways. The more flawless the persona, the more chaotic and dangerous the eventual shadow explosion. Perhaps the most alarming sign Jung identified is archetypal possession. This occurs when someone loses their individual identity and becomes a channel for vast transpersonal energies beyond their personal capacity to integrate. You can recognize this state when someone's distinct personality seems to vanish, replaced by something ancient and impersonal. Their eyes might change, their voice might deepen or alter, and they speak with an authority that clearly doesn't originate from their personal experience. They might become possessed by the eternal victim, always suffering and demanding rescue, or the righteous warrior, fighting cosmic battles against evil that only they can truly perceive, or the divine parent, treating other adults like children who desperately need their guidance and control. The possessed person experiences an extraordinary certainty and purpose. The normal ambiguity of human consciousness completely vanishes, replaced by an absolute conviction that can be incredibly persuasive to others. But here's what makes archetypal possession so dangerous. Archetypes contain extreme polarities. The same archetypal energy that can produce saints can also produce fanatics. The person possessed by the savior archetype will inevitably manifest its shadow aspects, often becoming the very thing they initially claimed to oppose. Jung documented cases where possessed individuals committed acts completely contrary to their conscious values, later experiencing amnesia or constructing elaborate rationalizations to explain their contradictory behavior. The final dangerous sign is what Jung called the compulsion to repeat. Unconscious patterns where someone obsessively recreates the exact same painful situations while genuinely believing themselves to be victims of a cruel, unyielding fate. This might seem less dangerous than the other signs, but people trapped in repetition compulsions unconsciously recruit others to play roles in their unresolved psychological dramas. The warning appears when you notice someone consistently ending up in identical painful situations with different people, always following surprisingly similar scripts. They seem genuinely surprised each time the pattern repeats, as if they are victims of destiny rather than the unconscious architects of their own recurring experience. The real danger here is getting recruited into their psychological drama. Without even realizing it, you can find yourself playing a predetermined role in a story that began long before you ever met this person. Perhaps the role of betrayer, abandoner, or persecutor. Jung termed this negative synchronicity, the unconscious ability to orchestrate encounters that perpetuate unresolved patterns. The person trapped in repetition compulsions unconsciously emits signals that attract precisely those who can help them recreate their original traumatic scenarios. Now that you can recognize these dangerous signs, how do you protect yourself? Jung's protection protocol is deceptively simple. Conscious awareness combined with immediate firm boundary enforcement. Step 1. Trust your gut. If someone's perception of you consistently contradicts your internal experience, trust your internal reality over their projections. Step 2. Don't try to convince them. Shadow projectors, inflated individuals, and possessed people are immune to contradictory evidence. Attempting to argue or convince them often strengthens their projections and sucks you deeper into their world. Step 3. Limit information. Don't share personal details that can be twisted into evidence supporting their projections. Step 4. Document interactions. Keep concise, objective records of conversations and events. Projectors often subtly or overtly rewrite history to support their distorted narratives. Step 5. Seek outside perspective. Talk to trusted others who know both you and the projector. Reality check your perceptions with people outside the projection field. And finally, step 6. Withdraw when necessary. Sometimes, the only winning move is not to play. If someone consistently shows multiple dangerous signs, strategic withdrawal, creating distance, even cutting ties, may be your only reliable protection. Remember that patient who profoundly changed Jung's understanding of human danger? The one who destroyed relationships while maintaining complete innocence? Jung eventually realized that this patient's shadow projections weren't random. They were systematic, unconscious attempts to avoid confronting his own capacity for the very behaviors he so vehemently saw in others. The patient simply couldn't tolerate knowing that he was capable of manipulation cruelty, and selfishness. So, his unconscious mind projected these terrifying qualities onto everyone around him, allowing him to feel pure and blameless, while unconsciously acting out the very behaviors he condemned. Right. This is the tragic irony of shadow projection. People become the very thing they most fear or hate, all while maintaining complete unconsciousness of their own transformation. But here's what Jung discovered that can truly save you. Conscious awareness of these patterns breaks their power. When you can recognize shadow projection, ego inflation, persona identification, archetypal possession, and repetition compulsions, you are no longer vulnerable to their unconscious influence. The most dangerous people are those who are completely unconscious of their own darkness. But the moment you become conscious of these patterns, both in others and, crucially, in yourself, you step out of their psychological jurisdiction. Jung spent his life mapping these dangerous territories of the human psyche not to instill fear, but to create freedom. Freedom from unconscious manipulation, freedom from projection fields, freedom from being recruited into other people's unresolved psychological dramas. The most dangerous Carl Jung psychology sign isn't just shadow projection. It's the absolute unconsciousness of one's own shadow, combined with complete, unshakable conviction in one's own perceptions. When you encounter someone who shows this sign, remember Jung's profound words. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. People who cannot accept themselves completely will inevitably make you the repository for everything they cannot bear to see in themselves. Your protection lies not in fruitlessly fighting their projections, but in maintaining conscious, unwavering awareness of what belongs to you and what unmistakably belongs to them. That consciousness is your unbreakable shield against the most dangerous psychological forces in human relationships. Have you encountered these warning signs in your own relationships? Share your experiences and insights in the comments below. Sometimes, recognizing these patterns in our past can be the most powerful protection for our future. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into Jung's psychology that can genuinely transform how you navigate human relationships. If you're ready to explore more strategic insights about power dynamics and motivation, check out my video on Never Defend Yourself, Machiavelli's Law That Destroys Your Enemies, where I reveal a psychological law that modern neuroscience has now proven devastatingly effective. The moment you defend yourself, you've already lost the power game. Thank you for watching. See you in the next dimension.